Okay, we are back. Morning Mishlei, and I said this in the chat, but I'll say it for the audio. We are doing chapter 14, and the reason we're doing chapter 14 is because the main part of Mishlei, according to me, not according to Rabbi Zimmer, main part of Mishlei is chapters 10 through 29-ish, and of the main part, the main part is 10 through 24. Because that's what Shlomo HaMelech wrote, and those are the Proverbs. Rabbi Zimmer holds that the main part of Mishlei is chapters 1 through 9, and the rest of Mishlei is an appendix. That's what he always says. So in our morning Mishlei shiur over the last 3 years, we've covered chapters 18 through 24. So we've got to the end of the main part of Mishlei. And in my Monday night Mishlei shiur, we've gone 10 through, we're working our way towards the end of 12 now. So we're now tackling the juicy center, and I chose to start off with chapter 14 because I want to leave 13 for our Monday night Mishlei shiur, just so we can finish. Have 12 and 13 for that. Yeah, it might be a little bit longer because we used to do 2 pasukim a week, and now we only do 1 pasuk a week in morning Mishlei shiur. But whatever, there's no rush. There's no rush. Yeah. Okay, so we are doing the beginning of Mishlei chapter 14, and here you go. Okay. Pasuk says, Chachmos nashim bansa besah, v'iveles biadeha sehersenu. Okay, and you're good. If you feel grammatically cringy, then you'll. That's something that all the Mepharshim have to address. So, anyone want to tackle translating?
The wisdoms of women build singular her house.
Okay, the wisdoms of women build singular her house.
Is it past tense? Bansa?
It built. Yeah, you're right. Built. Yeah, I feel like. Okay, I strongly feel like this is. Oh yeah, I'll say built. I do feel like this is one where we're doing it in present tense is warranted. In same, not exactly in the same way as Tehillim, where you can really play fast and loose. But I feel like Proverbs, when we translate it, we should translate it as in the present tense, but then mentally be aware that it's stated in the past tense, but whatever, that's fine. Built her house.
And foolishness in there, or its hands will destroy.
Okay, with her, I'm gonna say her, right? Her hands will destroy it. Okay, so obviously the grammatical problem here is, what was it?
Its hands.
Its hands, yeah. Okay, its hands. Yeah, the grammatical problem here obviously is chachmos is plural and bansa is singular. Okay, so we can rely on the fact there is a mainstream answer to that question. Okay, you can see it, but you can guess, yeah.
Chachma doesn't have to be one aspect of it; it be infinite text knowledge.
Okay, that's a good interpretation. There's a simple reading solution. So Sadigon is the first one who gives it to us. Hachachama shebanashim bone besa. The wise among women builds her house. Oh, he also agrees with me that you should switch it to present tense. Vahaskala biadeha horastel. But the foolish one tears it down with her hands. Okay, or destroys it. Horace, I guess, is destroyed, right? Destroys it with her hands. Okay. The Targum similarly says Hakimta dineshaya, the wise one, so he puts it singular among women, Banya Besa, Veshatyasa, that's from the word shote, Biadaha Akrala. Okay, Akrala literally means to uproot it. I'm not going to go ahead and write this because it's pretty much the same. Okay, Art Scroll also takes that solution. The wise among women each builds her house. Okay, but the foolish one tears it down with her hands. Okay, that's pretty much similar to
solving the grammatical problem, each builds a house, each one.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so Art Scroll is preserving women and doing the singular by changing the subject of the verb. Yeah, it's an elegant solution. Okay, Rav Hirsch. Oh, by the way, I think I did this in Monday night shiur. I'm swapping out Living Nach. I'm fed up with it by now. Living Nach just never has a translation that we really use, and Rav Hirsch is has his own takes on stuff. I'm not saying Living Nach is bad. Living Nach is a very good tool for learning. I feel like we've never really said, oh, Living Nach is the best translation. So I got rid of that.
Yeah, that checks out.
Yeah, okay. I have a verification. Oh, by the way, you should know that just as a side factoid, Living Torah is not the same as Living Nach. Living Torah was translated by Rabbi R.A. Kaplan. Living Nach was a continuation of the project after his death. So I've heard really, really good things about. Oh, did I give you the wrong thing? Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think I knew one of these is that one's good. Mm-hmm. I think one of yours has is extra thick, and because I think I accidentally stapled it wrong. Whatever. Yeah, Living Torah apparently is a much higher quality translation than Living Nach. Okay, anyway, Refer says a woman's wisdom has built her house, but foolishness will tear it down by its own hand. So he's preserving the notion that this is the subject is wisdom, not the woman. Okay, so we'll keep that there because that's significantly different. And an altar goes, doesn't alter. Okay, and I'm only showing you this to remind you of how different our Masorah is than an academic. Alter says, wisdom has built her house, and folly with her own hands destroys it. Now, where does he get this from? So he says, wisdom has built her house. This verset is identical with the first verse of 9:1. So let's just look up 9:1. 9:1. Chachmos bansa besa chatzava amudaha shiv'a. Okay, so the first half is the same. Except that here, the Masoretic text means the text that we do, like according to the Masorah, adds nashim, women or of women, after wisdom. That word looks suspect as an idiomatic usage, and one may concur in the proposal of R.B.Y. Scott that it is a scribal gloss. Okay, so in other words, he's saying that this word was just added after the fact. Accordingly, it is omitted in the translation. In any case, the momentary appearance in this section of Proverbs of the allegorical apparatus from the preceding but presumably later section 1-9 is anomalous. So this is really what gets me here. Okay, he's saying that he basically says chapter 9 is basically personifying wisdom and foolishness. Okay, saying that it's treating Chachma itself as a woman and foolishness as a woman, and he's saying, well, it seems like the word nashim is added, and then he acknowledges that it'd be weird to interpret it allegorically. So in other words, either way you take it, this is an anomaly. So why not go with the anomaly of the Masorah? It just bugs me, but alter's gonna alt. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna just preserve, let me just move Sadigan up here. Let's just preserve these translations and work with, I'm going to preserve ours just in case there's a more creative way to read it. But I think we should go with Sadia Gaon as the pshat, and then Rav Hirsch is a, secondary pshat. Okay, so what are the questions here?
Why is it specifying woman?
Okay, yeah, why specify women? Okay, that's a fair question about, it's kind of a question where I guess the question is here, this is Rabbi Moskowitz's favorite question, what is the subject of the pasuk, okay, such that women are the focus, right? In other words, you could say that Chachamim build lots of stuff, right? But why focus on women? Let's go just clockwise for Ezra through that one. Yeah.
Does Yigalos also apply only to women? I think the Chachmos women versus Yigalos women.
Right. So I just to make sure I understand your question. So in Sadigon's translation, wise is referring to the woman and foolish is referring to the woman. And then according to Rav Hirsch's, then wisdom is talking about wisdom itself and foolishness is foolishness itself. So what's your question? In other words, we're going to say that either both are talking about people or both are talking about personified, abstract stuff. Yeah. Oh, by the way, just one more thing I forgot to mention. Rashi, actually, let's do Rashi here.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
To go with what he was saying, in Rosajiga, the foolish one doesn't need to be a woman.
I think it does. Schala, or Sachala. I don't know how to say it, but yeah. Otherwise, it'd be Sichlus. Okay, so I just want to show you, I don't know what this means, but in case anyone who is here or listening knows more grammar than I do, which is very possible. Rashi says Chachmos Nashim with a Nakud Patach. It has a Patach under it, under the Ches. She'eno Shem Davar, that it is not a noun. Ella Chachamos Sheba Nashim Bonso Base Batehan. Okay, so he's proving this grammatically from the way that it's nikudified. And apparently it would be Chachmos in if it were wisdoms, but Chachmos is wise women, plural. Okay, which is another dig against altar because he said this is identical with chapter 9, but chapter 9 has kamats. That altar, yeah. Okay, trust no one. Okay, yeah. Yaakov.
What are Chachmos Nashim?
Okay, so what is the definition of an Isha Chachama in this context? Yeah, Mario?
Yeah. Why is her house a limitation?
Okay, yeah. So I'm going to actually put that here. Okay, why limit the pasuk to her house? Okay, like doesn't she build more than that? Yeah, that's your question, right? Like, why is it talking about house? Or
asking, like, why her house, like based on
okay.
It's inclusive.
Okay, right. Yeah, Sean.
Yeah, in terms of number 2, whether or not we're reading it like Sadia or of Hirsch.
Yeah.
If it is women's wisdom, so then like what's unique about women's wisdom?
Right.
And if it's a wise woman, then what's unique about wise women?
Okay, right. So let's just broaden this question to what's the definition of chachmos nashim? Okay, so if this is an isha chachama, what does that mean? If it's talking about women's wisdom, what does that consist of? Okay, and then yeah, right, yeah. I don't know why I said refers to personifying. He's kind of refers kind of in between. He's not going so far as alter to say that like this whole thing is just a metaphor, but he is saying it's the wisdom of women. Yeah, David.
Within the two different houses, are these?
Oh no, we'll do Isaac after. Yeah.
Are these two different people, or it's the same person? That's
two different people. The wise woman and then the foolish one. Yeah, Isaac. Unless you're traveling and can't unmute swiftly. All right. Well, I'll go to Ezra now. Yeah, Ezra.
How does this work? How does the Chachmos of Nashim or the Isha Chachama whatever build a house?
Right. Okay. Practically speaking, how does each half work? Right. How does the Chachmos Nashim build her house, and how does the Ivelis tear it down with her hands? Yeah. Yeah, Jacob.
Is there some
Did you say my name?
by Ivelis?
Hold on just a second, Isaac. What was that?
Is it specific? Is Biada specific to Ivelis? Like it's not the case that the Chachmos Nashim is Biada once based on.
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Okay, right. So why why specify biadeha only by the Ivelis and not by the Chachmos Nashim? Yeah, Isaac, I called you earlier, but I don't know if you heard. Yeah.
Yeah, no, my connection cut out. Is it her physical house?
Okay,
or is it like household?
Okay, right. So what does bias by what is in here? Bias refer to in this context? And I think there are really three like standard meanings here, right? So there's her physical house, the other is her household. Anyone know the other? Still within shot. Obviously, you could take it metaphorically, but
Institution.
Institution. Yeah, so institution I would still lump within household.
Husband.
Oh, it's funny. It goes the other way, right? We refer to the bias as the isha as the bias of the husband, not the other way around. So, or it means like progeny, right? Like offspring, like or like your dynasty, I guess, if you're talking in that way, right? Dynasty. Yeah. Okay. Oh, I got that air conditioned now. Yeah, you too.
It's just interesting that that the foolishness, she has a house to destroy because was she wise before?
Oh, that's a good question. Right. Let's incorporate that question into the first one, which is actually, you know what? No, let's make this our usual question, which is, what is the scenario here? Okay. Also, the second half presupposes that she has a house to destroy, whereas the first half seems to presuppose that that she builds the house from scratch, right? Now you don't have to interpret that way. You could say build means to like build it up, like build upon. But I think it's a question worth asking. Yeah, Sean.
You even have to say that she's destroying it with foolishness, or could you say that foolishness, like it's a warning? Once you build your house with chachma, be warned that foolishness, if you let it enter by different forces.
I don't know if I understand the difference. Say the two possibilities again.
All right, like within Rav Hirsch,
Yeah.
Foolishness will tear it down by its own hands.
Yeah.
Meaning, is it necessarily her foolishness
I
that's
see what
tearing
you're
it
saying.
down, or you could have some other factor of foolishness that's coming into the house that she's built that's therefore destroying it?
Okay, interesting question. Okay, that's a sharp reading. Hold on. Yeah, I'm going to put this as a separate question. Okay, according to Rav Hirsch. According to Rav Hirsch, since the pasuk doesn't explicitly state the foolishness of women, okay, does this mean her foolishness, or can it be any foolishness that she allows to enter her house? In other words, according to that, I don't know if this is what you were getting at or if this is just implication, it could even be that the pasuk is only talking to a wise woman and saying that your efforts in a vacuum will allow you to build your house, but if you allow someone to come in who's foolish, or something foolish to come in, even though it's not from you, that could destroy everything. Yeah, that's a very good question. Yeah.
Okay, so I understand that reading.
Yeah.
That you just said, because like it was either from someone else or some external factor.
Yeah.
So it seems like another way of reading it, which I first got from Shana, is like it could be even the woman who's the chacham's foolishness. So
Right.
that to me that lends another question of like the premise question. Like, is that like, I know it's possible for even chacham to like
Yeah.
or whatever, but like I mean, it just seems like a very drastic
Yeah. So
difference. I'm just trying to understand.
I think this is, so just to articulate what Ariel's saying here. So Ariel's saying that according to this way of reading it, according to the way that Sean suggested, then we were saying a wise woman who allows someone else's foolishness to come in. But then Ariel is saying, could it even be the foolishness of the wise woman? I think the thing you're intuitively sensing is that's a very messy reading, right?
Yeah,
because usually in Mishlei we talk about like pristine archetypes, like either the chacham or the fool. But I think what you could say is that she's building the house with her chachma, but any like instance of foolishness can like mess things up, like there's a pasuk in Koheles. I don't have enough thingies, but there's a screen. There's a pasuk in Koheles that says Zvuve mavis yabish. I'm not gonna get this. Hold on a second. Zvuve mavis, which does not mean flies of death. It means dead flies. But flies of death make an awesome metal band name. Sorry, this is getting slow. Yeah. Koheles 10:1. Zvuve mavis yabish yabia shemen rokeach. Dead flies putrefy the or they spoil the oil of the perfumer. Yakar chachma mikavo tzilus ma'at. Oh, so that's not the pasuk I was thinking of. There's another pasuk that says one sin can ruin a lot of good. And so like that, you could say that this is talking about like her one mistake could like jeopardize everything. And you see this, for example, let's say like in Shlomo Melech, right? Like he made the one, I mean, it was a sequence of the same bad decision of like marrying too many wives, and that one thing, even though all the rest of his like dynasty was good, that one thing like ruined everything.
Right, which leads to a follow-up question.
Yeah.
Is there a particular one thing, or is it any one?
For the foolishness thing?
Yeah,
correct. Yeah. All right, good. So I think that's a good let me just gonna add this onto here. or even one instance of her own foolishness. Yeah. Okay. So it's kind of a question of how far are we going to take Hirsch's implications here? Yeah, David.
Going to what you're saying, I don't know if this is what you're trying to hit at, but it does seem, I mean, I would think part of the chachma building a house is something that doesn't easily fall, yet it seems like even within this chachma nashim,
Yeah.
her house can still get destroyed from this Tefilah.
Yeah.
So my question then being, what's the relationship between the Ival and chachma? It seems that Ival can overpower smart, like good initial chachma at the
Right.
outset.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to ask this as a separate question, even though maybe we could fit into other stuff. So how do we account for the power imbalance between chachma and foolishness? Okay. And sorry, hold on a second. And foolishness. And this might just be a question of chachma and foolishness in general, not really necessarily on our pasuk, but like it seems like the potential for foolishness to destroy is greater than the potential for chachma to build, right? Is that, yeah.
Especially because part of the way that this chachma is supposed to build is to take into account the potential for destruction, yet it still can't stop that.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I don't think it's only reverse. I think this goes according to any reading that we
Is
take.
it just like a learning Torah? Like if you learn Torah, you take one step forward. If you miss a day,
It's similar to that. I was also thinking about. I feel like we've done a lot of pasukim on Monday night of the truth lies are way more powerful than truth, right? There's that statement. I think we quoted this in the a lie can travel around the world fast before the truth puts on its pants in the morning or something like that.
Oh,
you know, lies can just do so much more damage than truth can. Yeah.
I asked for Pesach why that's true.
Yeah.
And he said it's because there's something alluring to like a lie.
There's something what?
Alluring to it.
Alluring. Yeah. Right.
Which is more attractive.
Yeah, that could easily be. Okay. I feel like we have the most of the questions. I guess we have to ask our normal question as well. Okay, I mean, okay, actually, no, let's ask this. I think this is actually a good question. Who is the audience of this pasuk, right? So I don't think that's obvious at all, right? Because, I mean, what are the possibilities?
Men.
Okay, right, so women or men. I think those are the two, right? And it might not even be that. Why can I not switch?
Contractors.
Yeah, contractors. Yeah, yeah. Women. Okay, telling them to be wise and not foolish. Okay, men telling them to marry the right kind of woman. Okay, or I guess people involved in households in general, right? So in other words, that could be contractors. No, I know, but that could be like if we take bias as like an institution or whatever, then it could be, it could be for anybody who's in part of it. Yeah.
The same way that Isha's Chayil is not
Yes. Right.
individual.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. And then, it could also be an example within something that you could universalize to all systems. Yeah. Okay.
Also, what's the Havamina? Did we ask what's the Havamina?
Oh, that's a good question. Okay.
Like the second,
What is the Hava Amina? Okay. Whew, a lot of questions here. Okay, so oops, that was a typo. Okay, anyone have anything? Yeah.
I have like kind of the obvious idea,
Sure, let's do that.
which is, I think it's chachma will help a person like build things in a way that's because like they'll see how to do something well, and foolishness will destroy it because they'll make bad decisions that will be destructive.
Okay, so let me just point out some Mishlei methodology here. I feel like I talk about this all the time on Monday night, but I don't really bring it up here. So when you have a pasuk that has a seemingly obvious idea, if you haven't been learning Mishlei and you're woefully like naive about how like the ideas Mishlei teaches, then like you'll just say the idea and think that that's what the pasuk is teaching you. But if you've had experience in Mishlei, you're going to feel self-conscious about saying the obvious idea. Okay, I don't know. That's at least how I do it. Okay, but there are two methodological approaches you can take. Okay, either you can take the approach of rejecting the obvious idea and davka trying to find a chiddush, in a non-obvious way, which will force you to think in a different way. Or you could do what Isaac just did, which is lean into the obvious idea, articulate it, and sometimes when you do that, you'll see a nuance, or it'll serve as a stepping stone to get to something else. It kind of reminds me of, I'm just going to say this because it's the beginning of the year and you're about to have Gemara stuff, is the in my first year in yeshiva, I got 2 contrary pieces of advice about when you have a machlokus that you're trying to define, then do you start with the side that's easier or do you start with the side that's harder? So Rabbi Mann said, start with the side that's easier because your intuition is already going in that direction and you can work with that and formulate it. Rabbi Moskowitz says, no, avoid starting with the easy side because your intuition is already going with it and you're going to just get locked into your intuition. So force yourself to think about it in the other way. So then I went to Rebbe and I said, this is a machlokas between Rabbi Mann and Rabbi Moskowitz. What do you think is the right approach? And he said, I think they're both wrong. I think when it comes to thinking, there are no rules. So that was a good lesson for me, So Isaac, so let me just repeat what Isaac said. That Chachma will allow you to anticipate the best ways to do stuff and what the consequences are, and to successfully accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. Foolishness, just say what you said for foolishness again.
It'll cause the person to make bad decisions,
right?
And that'll be destructive in myriad ways.
Okay, good. So can we build off of that? I did not intend that. Can we develop that idea in a way that gets a chiddush? Because I think that's true, but I also think that doesn't satisfy the chiddush requirement. And you know what? Let's do just for kicks. I don't mean to say that in an insulting way. Let's look at the Metzudas David because I feel like he'll probably say something similar, and that will at least anchor us in one of the Mefarshim here. Slow as a scroll. Bottom right. Yeah. Kol achas min hachachamo shebenashim. Each one of the wise women, the wise among women, banta beisa, rotalam amedes beisa al besisa. She establishes her house on its foundation. Oh, so that's also a new move. And then, so in other words, he's saying building the house. Don't picture building the house to mean starting with nothing and then building up a house. He's saying that it means you have a house, but it might not be on a solid foundation. Okay, he's emphasizing the foundation here. And Teresenu is Mahareses Beis Abiyadaha. She destroys the house with her hands. Okay, so you can either think along the lines of Isaac or think along the lines of Metzudas David. So can we just develop this idea? Isaac's idea is that Chachma basically allows you to do things in the most effective way. Foolishness leads you to make bad decisions, which could destroy stuff. And I think that also fits in with Sean's inference, which is that, or at least Sean's inference of the way that you were interpreting it, which is that even if you are a chachama and you're building stuff really well, if you make one bad decision, you can wreck an entire house. And I don't mean to, I'm not trying to, okay, let me backpedal for 1 second. For those of you who heard Rav Pesach's beginning of the year thing yesterday, he was saying that there's an unhealthy mentality that a person could get into where they need everything to be perfect or according to plan, and they end up feeling that one thing that goes off plan can destroy the entire endeavor, and then they give up. Let's say like in yeshiva, I have my whole schedule that I need everything properly, and if I miss one day, then this whole week's shot, and then I miss 1 week, and this whole year shot, and that's it. He was saying that's an unhealthy mentality. That's true in terms of mentality, but in terms of the actual world, the actual physical world, you can totally wreck something with one foolish maneuver. Let's say let's use the actual literal building thing. If you have the best blueprint for the building, but then you don't bother to check out that you're buying a certain material from a sketchy dealer, and it ends up being concrete mixed in with the other stuff that's not as strong, that could just totally ruin the entire building. So there is a reality to this principle here. So what would be the chiddush according to this idea then? Sorry, there's more methodology. In the beginning of the year, I want to just articulate a lot of the methodology. When I ask for a chiddush, chidushim is a subjective thing. for some people, this itself is a chiddush, okay? And in fact, one of the things that I learned from Robert Alter is he said, when Shlomo Melech wrote, actually, I don't know if he holds that Shlomo Melech wrote Mishlei, when Mishlei was written, it was a chiddush that you could become wealthy through chachma and you could become poor through foolishness, okay? Meaning people thought that people were still operating in like an astrological framework where like they thought that if you are wealthy, you were destined to be wealthy because that's how you were born, So Shlomo writing a book that like you can use chachma to make more money, to us, that's not a chiddush, but in that world, it was a chiddush, So I don't mean to discount Isaac's idea, bichlal. I mean that for the level of Mishlei learning that we're at, I demand more of Mishlei. So I want more from that. Yeah, Isaac, you have more?
Yeah, I would say, by the way, I might lose service at any moment.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think also the a house that has solid foundations and a house that doesn't look identical from the outside.
Yeah.
But someone who's operating with chachma is gonna, build foundations that allow the house to be sturdy.
Okay, that's a good observation here, right? So I just want to recall Rabbi Moskowitz's definition of ivelis. There's different words for foolishness in Mishlei. Rabbi Moskowitz's definition of ivelis means looking at things superficially. Okay, so I think that fits in here, which is that a house with a strong foundation and a house without a strong foundation will look identical, but the chachama sees what actually gives the building structural integrity, which is not perceptible to the eye. I think that's good for the first half. I still feel like we need a little bit more in the second half. And I'm just thinking now, if we're talking about foundations, it's interesting. She's not tearing down the foundations, right? I don't think you can do that. She's tearing down the house. So I think that might be another pathway to a nuanced idea.
Yeah. I don't know if it's related to this or not, but I want to answer these questions about because it may or may not be fitting.
Just remind me, which question?
About like if you're foolish, then how do you have like a house
Right, where's the house come from? Right, yeah. Yeah.
So I was thinking that like in any let's say assume you're getting married, right?
Yeah.
In any marriage, you already have like a house that you're living in.
Yeah.
Right. That in itself is a house. So like you're not building a house from scratch.
Yeah.
You're just already in it. Now the question is like, how do you make it better? Like, I think with the with the foolish individual, like she's not focused on the foundation. I think the foundation is a critical part of the house. She's just destroying the walls because it's just a very superficial.
Okay, can we get this down to particulars, because I think like I think we can decide on the fact that we're not talking about the physical structure, right? We're using the physical structure as a muscle.
Yeah.
So what is the foolish woman doing? That's equivalent to tearing down the walls.
I think other than that.
Oh, sure, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, Yaakov.
I could think of a reason why this basic idea would be chiddush just in this context.
Okay.
If you say that Bekius is talking about like a household, like
Yeah,
the family, dealing with the household and that, stuff.
yeah,
I think there's often that to people have, maybe more women in general, but that like you've seen like what your mother does and your parents do, and like it's kind of just ingrained in you, like you know how to be a mother, how to raise a household.
right.
Like it's just like it's kind of natural through experience. You don't need to take it.
Okay. That's good. Okay.
Stuff.
Yeah.
So it's saying that no, like if you're not careful, you will be the those who with their own hands.
Okay. All right. That's a good finish. Okay. So let me repeat that. So there are certain areas that people recognize that you need chachma to operate in. So let's say, for example, doing surgery. I don't think anyone thinks that you could just cut open a body and just poke around and then solve problems, right? But when it comes to like raising kids, let's just use that as the example, even though it's probably like a lot of household stuff, then people feel like they already know how to do it, or that they could just rely on what they saw being done. Now, the thing is that like, first of all, that could go horribly wrong. But let's say your parents did the right thing in raising you, right? And it worked out well. And so you think, oh, I can just like copy what my parents did and that'll turn out well. Well, here's the thing. Your kid is not you, right? The era that they're growing up in is not the same era that your parents raised you in. The relationship between you and your kid has its own dynamics that will affect things. So you can't just kick back and rely on autopilot, but you actually need to apply chachma there in order to be effective. All right, so that's okay. See, that is answering the chiddush by showing the need for the idea here, specifically, like you said, like the context here is it's not a chiddush to say that chachma helps stuff, but it is a chiddush emotionally to say that you need chachma here because you think that you don't need chachma here, and this answers your Havamina question. Just an example of this, by the way, that I don't know why this was in my mind recently, but I think I first heard this from Jesse Fishbein. It's just a good much for foolishness in general. Is the expression "a deer in the headlights," right? Which is that if you're driving along and the deer is on the road, it'll freeze. Right now, you could easily look at that and say, "Well, dumb deer," right? But why do deer freeze in the headlights?
It's camouflage usually.
Yes, because in the wild, it's camouflage. That if a predator can only see based on motion, then if it freezes, then that will be in its best interest. The mistake, which is obviously not a mistake, is that strategy works out well, 99% of the time in the wild, but then you put it into a new situation. If it falls back on that defense mechanism, it is the opposite of good. It actually is self-destructive, So a lot of foolishness works in that way, where you are on autopilot in a certain area, and it might have worked out well in at one point in your life, but it doesn't work out well now. And if you want to go into IFS, that's all all of the problematic ways we have with dealing with the world got there because at one point in our lives, then we thought or felt, or it actually was the most effective way to work. But then those solutions don't work for when your life situation changes, and it can be self-destructive. Yeah, Aaron?
According to Yaakov's interpretation of the pasuk, which I like.
Yeah.
The only thing for me that stands out is the second latter half of the pasuk where it says her hands.
Okay, right. So let's try to tackle that then. So what is being added by her hands? And I'll say here, the idea is complete without it, but this is the type of thing where if you could find a nice like a nuance that that adds to the idea.
Fine without her hands.
Right. Just say she tears down the house. Right. Yeah. And I think also the I have an idea, but I think also explaining why hands is only in the second half. Sorry, either why hands is in the second half or why hands is not in the first half. Yeah.
I mean, what Yaakov was saying was, I think, or this is where my mind was going.
Yeah.
Is that the chachma of nashim is like these intuitive, like motherly things that like they just know to do intuitively to build like a family, or it's like raise kids or whatever. But once like you're done with like the raising kids portion of the raising, and like the chachmos nashim is no longer like this intuitive like sense that like the Tefilah is also hinting at. Then it's kind of like in their hands to actually continue building it, and at that point, that's when like like there's no longer this like intuitive. There's no intuitive foolishness, but there's this intuitive chachma, and then after that, like it's like with your hands you can destroy it.
Okay, so your question, or what you're saying now raises a question about whether I was understanding Yaakov correctly. Okay, because you're using the word intuition. I was thinking that chachmos nashim is davka like not intuition. That's what you're saying? Okay, yeah, right. In other words, like it's working out, like instead of just relying on the intuition of parenting, you're saying, well, what actually is the goal of parenting? What are the strategies? What does my child need?
I have a different approach.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, and we can explore that later on. Yeah, Oren?
The hands.
Yeah.
Maybe there's like a Havamina that if you're foolish, it'll sort of just kind of destroy itself by itself. Like it's just like a happening. It'll just kind of occur. But the hands, like it's gonna be your doing. Right. You need to watch out because you're gonna be the one.
Okay. All right. So I think that's a good answer. So one answer is that it is emphasizing, like I think it's very, very it's a trend in general, but especially among people who think they're making the right decision, to just blame failure on the external factors. Right. But for her to realize that she could be the agent of destruction, that by doing stuff that she thinks is good mothering, that is destroying her household, So it's going to be through your hands, and that kind of like has like a Mishlei shock value of like me, like I'm going to be destroying it, and it's getting her to realize, ata isha, ata isha, yeah. Okay, that's a good answer. You have another? Yeah.
Well, I don't know. It might be adding on to this whole thing, but it's interesting because it's not talking about someone who like doesn't want to build a house.
Right.
Like the foolish person may want to build a house.
Yeah, no, I think she does. I think she does want to build a house.
So
Yeah.
like so yeah, I don't know, just
Okay.
it's not like a Russia versus a tzaddik.
Right.
It's more like
Right. All right. I have a quick explanation for you, Biadaha. Yeah.
This is a questionist approach.
Yeah.
So is it specifying women just puts like Dino Kasuk Beholder?
I think so. Yeah, I think that it's specifying women. This does apply to men, but women tend to have especially if this is talking about children. I think women have a greater hand in how the children turn out than men do, at least with young children. I was thinking also Biadeha is my idea. My answer is not as good as Oren's, but I just want to say it anyway. That it's emphasizing the autopilot nature of stuff. Like I'm reminded of another pasuk in Mishlei that says, hold on a second. I can't recall by memory. It's a laziness pasuk.
Oh.
Yeah. So I saw it recently, but Taivas atel timisenu kimi anu yadav lasos. Let's see if I got it right. Tavas atel timisenu kimi anu yadav lasos. Yeah, the desire or the lust of the lazy person will kill him because his hands refuse to act. And so Rבינו Yona, I think on that pasuk, says that hands is a stand-in for habits. Because your hands can't refuse to act, right? Your hands don't have any will of their own. But let's see, he says, Kasher tigbar ta'avasa b'davar v'yivakish litroach lasos malacha k'dei sheyasig al hadavar she's avelav hine yadav mima'anos lasos. So he says, when a lazy person's taiva for something and his overpowers him, and he seeks to toil to do malacha in order to get the thing that he desires. In other words, he wants to get something. Hine yadav mema'anos lasos. His hands will refuse to act. Ki hirgil evarav el ha'atzla, because he's accustomed his hands to laziness, v'hamenucha, and tranquility. V'ha'hergel shilton aleim, and habit dominates his hands. Uki'ilu yimanu yadav bamesh hu chafetz al der. It's as if his hands are refusing to Ilu Yimanu Yadav b'meshu chavetz, are refusing to do what he wants. Al derech masha kasav b'inyan hazrizus v'tas b'chepetz kapeh. It says by Eshes Chayil, her hands act with desire. So hands is often a stand-in for habits. So I think that fits in nicely with Yaakov's idea, which is that she's destroying it through her hands, which means through her habitual actions and ways of operating. Yeah, David?
It's a different read.
Sure.
Okay. It's also, I think, one to take some things like the actual read itself feel different. In that a woman, that not necessarily she herself is actually doing the building. It doesn't specify that she is building it. It does seem at this latter half that she is the one who's destroying it.
Yeah.
Particularly also, I think women aren't usually the ones who are building,
right,
physically building it. So I think it's to say that then Chachmot Benashim, that she'll either have someone build a house for or have a house well built. Yeah, and I think particularly the focus on the second half, that she's the one who's living in the house, dwelling in the house, that day to day she's the one who's occupying it. That if she's a fool, that will destroy even a well-built house. And not to think that, just because I have a well-built house, it was done really well, all this, I could just do whatever I want and nothing's going to happen. But her foolishness, since she is day by day living in this house, it will destroy even something well built. Okay,
that's good. For some reason, I'm not I think I'm having a hard time hearing the idea because my mind is too in this. So if you can remember it for tomorrow, then we'll do that. I also, speaking of habits, want to get into the habit of doing now what we do on Monday nights, which is writing notes on the ideas. Let's just write Yaakov's idea really quickly, and then we'll end for today. Which is, it's not a chiddush to say that Chachma will be effective and foolishness will be destructive. However, when it comes to parenting, people, especially women who are in charge of this, feel like they can coast on autopilot based on the way they were raised. Okay, the chiddush is that you need chachma in every case. Okay, even if you were raised well, your kid is a different person. Your time period is a different time period, okay, etc. And you need to think through every decision from scratch. And if you don't, then your autopilot, okay, yes, you will potentially bring about the destruction of the house you are trying to build. Okay, that's good enough for notes.
Just for women.
For well, it's primarily for women, but if you're a father who is raising kids, you know, or if you're a teacher who's running a class the way that your class was run, like this could go on any autopilot in any institution that you're trying to build up.
So then
any caregiving role.
So then why is pasuk just limited to women?
Because Dibra Kasu Behove, that the pasuk speaks about the typical case. Yeah.
I see.
Okay, good. So later tomorrow we will look at some other mafarshim or hear other ideas. And W, we'll start off with you if you want to state anything. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks. This is good to get back.
Do you need articles for writing
Thanks.
or sentence summaries?
Do I? Sorry, hold on a second. Do I?